Assalamu alaikum, dear students. My name is Hamad Hafiz. I am going to discuss unit number 1 and 2 of chemistry 5070 with the help of this worksheet. So let's start. Which element exist as diatomic molecules at room temperature? So it's very simple that the non-metals, all the non-metals, they may exist as diatomic molecules at room temperature, because whenever two atoms combine by covalent bond, they form a molecule. So all the non-metals, they form diatomic molecules. They also form triatomic, polyatomic molecules, but metals, they do not form molecules, because whenever they are associated with non-metals, they must lose electrons, so they form ions. So that's why they do not exist as molecules. And all the noble gases, they exist as monatomic molecules. So we can say that all the noble gases, they are mono. So whenever diatomic molecules is concerned, so they must be non-metals. So C option is the right answer: nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine. Except C, every option contain at least one noble gas, like helium, neon. They are noble gases, they are not diatomic. It's very simple, so no need to draw these in whiteboard. Whenever whiteboard is required, I must use it, inshallah. Second MCQ is: the diagram shows the fractionation of crude oil. Which statement is correct? Each fraction consists of single compound, or actually certain fractions contain more than one compound, like gasoline. P in this diagram, P is the fraction in which we obtain gasoline. So gasoline is not a single gas. It's methane, it's propane. So there are numerous gases, from carbon number 1 to methane, propane, and certain more gases. Inshallah, we will discuss in organic chemistry. So A is not a right answer. Fraction P has the highest boiling point. No. Basically, fractional distillation is a process which separated compounds on the basis of difference in their boiling point. So the above or top fraction, they has lowest boiling point, because the fraction that has low boiling point, it's separated first. So P must has lowest boiling point. The highest temperature is at top of the column. No, the highest temperature is at the bottom of column. At the top there is lowest temperature. So naphtha fraction is used as feedstock. So D is the right answer, because this is the use of naphtha fraction. It is used as feedstock for chemical industry. So D is the right answer. Next, the apparatus shown is used to distill a dilute solution of ethanol in water. So basically, fractional distillation is a process in which two miscible liquids are separated. Two miscible liquids are separated by fractional distillation. Whenever and miscible liquids are those which are dissolved in each other in all the proportions. So basically, what happens, it is called RB, round bottom flask, or boiling flask. Inshallah, I will discuss all the aspects of fractional distillation. Uh, so basically, this is round bottom flask, and here is it is called fractionating column, which contain glass beads, and here is a condenser, and we separate our distillate in this conical flask. So this is a rough diagram. Actually, you are supposed to focus on the concepts behind this. So first thing, for example, here's a mixture of water and ethanol. First thing, we should heat by using electric heater or water bath. You are not supposed to direct heat, because ethanol is flammable. It may catch fire. All the organic compounds, whenever they are separated, or all the compounds which are carbon containing, whenever they are separated by means of fractional distillation, you are supposed to use water bath or electric heater. You are not directly heat this, because they may catch fire. So whenever you heat it, ethanol has low boiling point. Ethanol has low boiling point. It boil at 78 degrees Celsius. Water has 100 degrees Celsius. So whenever you heat it, it is very simple that ethanol vaporize first. So all the ethanol, they move from this fractionating column. If some water molecules, they move upward by because we maintain temperature of the vapors. There is a thermometer bulb, and the bulb should be placed where vapors move and move towards this Liebig condenser. Exactly, the location of thermometer bulb is in front of Liebig condenser. It's very important. So when thermometer identify the temperature of vapors 78, we actually set that temperature. If somehow some ethanol molecule push water molecule upward, somehow some water molecules move upward, by this fractionating column, the reflux condensation takes place. That water molecules, whenever they move upward, due to because these glass beads, they suppress for shorter time all the molecules, either they are ethanol or water. Whenever they goes upstairs, these beads of silica, they suppress for shorter time all the molecules. All the molecules are being suppressed for shorter time by these beads. So when temperature little bit go downward, the water molecule, they goes into downward direction in this beaker. So this process is called reflux condensation. And but ethanol molecules, because they have low temperature, there is a difference between the temperature of water and ethanol move from this place. We maintain that temperature. That ethanol molecule have little bit higher temperature. We maintain the temperature higher than 78 and lower than 100. So this is how, whenever the ethanol molecules, they goes upward, for example, they have 80 degrees Celsius or 85 degrees Celsius, when they are suppressed by vapors. There is a maintenance of temperature, that even after suppression, they should move from these vapors, from these glass beads, and then in condenser they are condensed, and we take in this conical flask. But the question is, in our MCQs, the concentration of ethanol in this RB, round bottom flask, either it is decrease or increase. It's very simple. All of you can easily explain that the concentration of ethanol decrease. So graph is just like this. If we make a graph, the graph is between time and concentration of ethanol. So its graph is like this. The concentration going to decrease, ultimately they become 0. So let's check. A is not possible because in this case concentration of ethanol increases, and B, in the case of B, concentration of ethanol increases. So A and B straight away they are ruled out. D in the case of D, you see that the concentration of ethanol increases, so it is impossible in this case. So D is not happening. D is not possible. So C is the right answer. Next, question number 4 is very technical. You please pay attention. Diagram shows the structure of ionic compound. What is the possible formula for this compound? So there are 4 options: CaF2, NaCl, MgO, CO2. So you need to know that CO2 straight away is removed because it is not an ionic compound, and they have no crystalline structure. It is a gas, and so that's why C is not happening. So there is a competition between CF2, NaCl and MgO. There are 3 entities. We are supposed to choose one option, so I am going to explain this by using whiteboard. There is some explanation. So basically there are 3 options left: NaCl, MgO and CaF2. In the case of NaCl, you see that there is 1 positive charge plus 1 and 1 negative charge. So when we draw the structure of NaCl, the crystal lattice of NaCl, there is positive ion, then there is negative ion, then it positive, here is negative means Cl and positive means Na, then is positive, then negative, then positive, there is negative, positive, negative, positive. So their structure is just like this. Here is negative and then positive. You see that the negative ion is surrounded by 2 positive. This is a tentative unit structure of the structure of NaCl, crystal lattice of NaCl. You see that there is a 1 negative charge which is surrounded by 2 positive, and 1 positive is surrounded by 2 negative. So the ratio between positive and positive ions are surrounded by 2 negative, and negative is surrounded by 2 positive. So the ratio is same, 1:1. 1:1. So same in the case of MgO, 2 positive charge, 2 plus 2 minus, just I write 2 instead of 1 because Mg contain 2 positive charge and oxygen contain 2 minus charge. So 2 positive, 2 minus, 2 positive. So all 1 magnesium ion is surrounded by 2 oxygen and 1 oxygen surrounded by 2 magnesium. So the ratio is again 1:1. So whenever the ionic compound which has ratio 1:1, they have the structure of ionic compound just like this, in which 1 positive is surrounded by 2 negative, and vice versa. But in the case of calcium fluoride, it's very important. This is how we apply our knowledge to explore this. But in the case of calcium fluoride, there is calcium contain 2 positive charge and fluoride contain 1 minus charge. Basically, one calcium ion has 2 positive charge. So there is a ratio between 1:2. That means calcium is surrounded by more fluoride ions. The ratio is 1:2. If we see the structure, if you see the structure, that here is one calcium is surrounded by 2 fluoride ions, but fluoride is not surrounded by 2 calcium ions. So wherever the ionic compound which have ratio 1:2, in which one calcium ion is surrounded by 2 negative ions, or any one metal ion surrounded by 2 negative ions, they have structure just like this, in which you clearly see that one positive bigger molecule is calcium and smaller are fluorides. One calcium is surrounded by 2 fluorides, but fluorides are not surrounded by 2 calcium ions. It's very simple. You are just apply your knowledge to explore this. So A is the right answer. Fifth, which process will separate an ionic compound PQ into its element P and Q? So it's very simple. Electrolysis, as you know that electrolysis is only the process which separated compounds, ionic compounds, into respective elements. Keep in mind that ionic compounds which are water soluble, for example NaCl, whenever dissolved in water, it is dissociated, but still ions are present. Whenever water is removed, evaporated, all the ions are again attached. But electrolysis is only process by means of electricity, by using electrodes, that ions are intentionally attracted and deposited in particular electrodes. So in order to separate it ionic compound, electrolysis is used. Which statement describes conversion of magnesium atoms to magnesium ion? It's very simple. Magnesium atom, whenever it converts into magnesium ion, it must lose electron. As it belongs to second group, it loses 2 electrons. So the loss of electron is called oxidation. So B is the right answer. It's very simple. Change is oxidation, and because there has been loss of electrons, it's very simple. Seventh, which diagram shows the arrangement of particles inside a balloon containing a mixture of gases, nitrogen and oxygen? So because they are molecules, so as they are molecules, they are not combined because the nitrogen is very inert. It cannot react with oxygen at room temperature. So they must be in combined form, like nitrogen atom. They must be combined. So B or C is the possibility. Again, B is not the right answer, because in the case of B, you see that there are higher concentration of nitrogen in one compartment. Black dots are nitrogen and white dots are oxygen molecules. So diffusion is the basic principle. It's a universal principle that higher concentration of particles, they move from higher to lower concentration. So C is the right answer, where all the particles, all the gases are randomly moved. Okay, B is not happening. It's not possible because uh, nitrogen must move from higher concentration to lower concentration to downward, and oxygen must move upward. They mix together, so diffusion takes place. So C is the right answer. 8. A purple pill is placed in beaker of water. Beaker is left for several hours. The diagram shows the appearance of water when pill is added and several hours later. Which statement explain why this change occurred? Diffusion occurs because pill is colored. Basically, diffusion is not associated with color. Oxygen is colorless gas, nitrogen is colorless gas. They may diffuse from higher concentration to lower concentration. So color is not mandatory in diffusion. Even colorless gas is also diffuse. Diffusion occurs faster at higher temperature. In this case, diffusion takes place in room temperature. We cannot the examiner did not increase the temperature, so B is not the answer. A is not the answer. Diffusion occur from higher concentration to lower. Yes, C is the right answer. Diffusion occur at higher from higher to lower. Gas is diffused faster than liquid. Yes, gas is diffused faster, but in this case, pill is not a gas, it is a solid, so it diffuse. In this case, you cannot discuss about gas, so D is not the right answer. You explain why this change occur with respect to this diagram, so C is the right answer. A student is given only nucleon number. What is meant by nucleon number? Nucleon number basically is a atomic mass, number of proton and neutron. What can be deduced about the structure of atom? Number of neutrons plus protons. Yes, A is the right answer. Neutrons plus protons are deduced by nucleon number. So 10. Equal masses of methane are stored under different conditions. Under which set of condition does the methane gas occupy smallest volume? So you need to know that when you increase the temperature, the spaces between particles increase. As collision increase, they collide with each other and they far apart from each other. When you increase the pressure, the spaces between particles, they are decreases, because in this case when gases are pressurized, they get closer to each other. So by increasing pressure, the area, the spaces between the particles, they're gonna be decreases. So let's check the answer. Equal masses of methane gas are stored under different condition. Under which set of condition does methane gas occupy smallest volume? 0 degree, and at atmospheric pressure 0 degree, at twice temperature. Yes, D is the right answer, because C and D are 30 degrees Celsius. As temperature increases, the spaces between particles, they are increases. So condition is that the gas occupies smallest volume mean the spaces between gases is very low, they occupy small volume. So by decreasing temperature and increasing pressure, the gases occupy the smallest volume. So 11th question, a student follows the rate of reaction between marble chips and dilute hydrochloric acid. Which diagram shows the apparatus that is suitable for this experiment? As carbon dioxide is released, so when carbon dioxide gas is released, You can use apparatus 1 because carbon dioxide is slightly insoluble in water. You can separate it by mean of displacement of water. So A is the right answer, in which you can monitor the volume by in all the diagrams. Stopwatch is not mentioned here, but it is mandatory that in order to calculate the rate, stopwatch must required. So examiner did not mention here, but it's understood that stopwatch still is present in every case. So A is the right answer, in which you can monitor the change in volume of carbon dioxide with respect to time. And B is the right answer, because loose plug, the gas release slightly, you can monitor change in mass with respect to time. See, the third option is not the right, because there is no change is monitored. There is no change is monitored. Rate is a rate of reaction. Rate of reaction is monitored when you see there is a change taking place with respect to time. So in third option, there is you see that there is no change in volume. You cannot monitor the change in volume. You cannot monitor the concentration change. You cannot monitor the mass change. So fourth option, in which this option you can use to know the change in volume by gas range. So 1, 2 and 4 are the right answer. D is the right answer. 12. Which two elements react together, a compound is formed? Which statement is correct? Which statement is correct? Equal masses of element must be used? No, it's not mandatory. When compound formed, when one thing is excess and one thing is limited, you can form compound. Compound show similar chemical properties to those elements? No. Compounds have quite different properties than its constituent elements. I take example like water is formed by hydrogen and oxygen. They are gases. Water is liquid. It is both hydrogen is flammable gas and oxygen helped in flammable. In order to perform combustion experiment, oxygen is required. So water is not a flammable. So there are different properties. Water has boiling point 100, but hydrogen and oxygen boiling point is very, very low. So compound must it always have different properties than that of its constituent elements. Its properties are quite different. Even the color of compounds, some compounds have different colors, like if we take example of iron plus sulfur, iron have gray color, sulfur is white color. Whenever you heat it, a compound is formed, iron sulfide, it is black in color. So even compound have different color than that of constituent element. So compounds show different chemical properties to those of elements. Element must both be non-metals? No, it's not mandatory. Sometimes metals and non-metals, they combine to form a compound. So when the elements react together, ionic or covalent compounds are formed. Yes, it's the right answer. D is the right answer, because whenever compounds form, they form either ionic or covalent compound. Whenever metals and non-metals combine, they form ionic compound. Whenever non-metal combine, they form covalent compounds. Or yes, whenever metal plus non-metal combine, they form ionic compound, like Na plus Cl, they form compound NaCl. Similarly, whenever non-metal form a compound like C plus O2 arrow CO2, non-metal whenever they compound, they form covalent compound. And don't confuse non-metals and metals, they do not combine chemically. Metals and metals, they do not combine chemically. Yes, you can mix metals in other metals. This is called, whenever you mix metal and metal, they form alloy, and this is physical phenomena. This is not chemical, because there in chemical reaction ratio is fixed. You add fixed volume, fixed amount of reactants to form a compound or product. But in alloy, it's a physical mixture. Simply whenever ink is added in water, similarly metals are added in different metals to form alloy. It's not a chemical compound. Chemical reaction does not take place, because in chemical reaction elements lose electron, atoms lose electron, atoms gain electrons to form respective ions. Or in non-metals, they share electron, but in mixture of metals and metals, no sharing of electron takes place, no losing of electron, no gaining of electron takes place. So it's a physical phenomena. So whenever reaction takes place, whenever compound is formed, either it is ionic or covalent. A particle of isotope sulfur contain 18 neutrons, 18 electrons. So sulfur proton number of sulfur is 16. So sulfur must contain 16 electrons whenever it is in elemental form. It's stable. But 18 electrons mean it should be an ion, 2 minus ion. So C is the right answer. It's very simple. Which statement is correct for all ionic compounds? They dissolve in water. No, some certain ionic compounds are water insoluble, like lead chloride. They are formed when metals shared electrons with non-metals. No. Metals basically lose electron whenever they form ionic compound. They conduct electricity in molten form. Yes, it is the right answer. In solid form, they do not conduct electricity, because ions are localized. Ions are fixed. But in the case of molten ionic compounds, the ions are delocalized. By means of ions, they conduct electricity. Some students write that they have free or delocalized electrons. It's a wrong answer. They conduct electricity because they have free or delocalized ions, not electrons. When a piece of sodium is heated in air, it reacts with oxygen to form the ionic compound sodium oxide. In terms of electron, which statement correctly explain what happens when sodium reacts with oxygen? It's very simple. Sodium basically lose electron and oxygen gain electron, and oxygen atom share electron. Wrong. Sodium atom lose 2 electrons which are transferred to oxygen atom. No, sodium lose basically 1 electron because it belongs to group number 1. Sodium atom share outermost electron. No, 2 sodium atom lose each electron. Yes, D is the right answer. Basically 2 sodium atom lose each electron which are transferred to 1 oxygen atom. The diagram shows the 4 pieces of apparatus that are used to measure the volume of gas or liquids. Which piece of apparatus should always be filled with same level? It's very simple. D is the right answer because it has calibre mark. It monitor the fixed volume, fixed amount. Except pipette, measuring cylinder, they can measure the volume in fractions, 5, 6, 3.5. Similarly, they can measure in fractions. The diagram shows the structure of 2 forms of carbon, which X and Y conduct electricity. So it's very simple. Y conduct electricity because it's a structure of graphite, and X is a structure of diamond. It do not conduct electricity because graphite has localized electron, delocalized electron, but in the case of diamond, all the electrons are occupied. All the 4 carbon Carbon has 4 electrons in outermost shell, and all 4 atoms are combined with other 4 atoms of carbon. But in the case of graphite, one carbon is associated with 3 other carbons. One carbon electron is free, which is the reason of conduction of electricity. Which statement about particles? Follow right. Neon. Which statement about the particles fluorine, neon and sodium is correct? They all contain more electrons than protons. Actually, this type of questions are very easy. They all contain more electrons than protons. They all contains more neutrons than proton. You simply solve this. They all contain same number of electrons. For basically fluoride, it contain 10 electrons. Neon, it contain 10 electrons, and sodium contain 10 electrons. So they all contain same number of electrons. C is the right answer. The table shows the some properties of 4 substance. Which substance is the ionic compound? Basically, ionic compound has very high melting and boiling point. Why they have high melting boiling point? Because there is a strong force of attraction. There is a strong electrostatic force between positive and negative ions. They are combined with very high power. So that's why they have very high melting and boiling point. They conduct electricity in solid? No, they do not conduct. So A is, or B is the right answer. Dissolve in water. Conduct electricity in aqueous? Yes, they conduct electricity and melting point. So B is the right answer, because they do not have melting point in minus. They must have high melting point and boiling point. So its question is about paper chromatography. 4 samples are spotted onto chromatography paper. It is known that one of these samples is pure compound Q. A separate sample of pure compound Q is also spotted onto the paper. The paper is placed in the solvent. Okay. So a sample 2 has traveled the furthest, and sample 3 is pure compound Q. Basically, yes, it contain entity which is resembled to Q. Sample 3 has traveled the furthest, and sample 2 is pure compound Q. Basically, sample 3 is not a pure. Sample 3 is not a pure because Q is a pure compound, and in 3 there is no entity of Q. So A option is not the right option. Sample 3 has traveled furthest, and sample 2 is pure compound Q. But sample 3 is not traveled furthest. Sample 4 has traveled furthest, and sample 1 is pure compound Q. Sample 4, no, D is the right answer. Sample 4 has traveled furthest because sample 4 has traveled furthest. It goes and why it traveled the furthest? Because this relative solubility of this compound in solvent is very high. The particle which has very high solubility, relative affinity of solubility of particle in solvent is high, that particle traveled the furthest. So sample 4 has traveled the furthest, and sample 2 is pure compound of Q. So I just completed 20 MCQs. Inshallah, I split this this lecture into 2 parts. The first in next portion I explain further 20 MCQs. Inshallah. God bless you.